Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com presents the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. PerformBetter.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 211 of the Strength Coach Podcast, the official podcast of Michael Boyle, StrengthCoach.com, the world's best source for strength and conditioning information. You can try StrengthCoach.com out for 3 days just to buck. You'll have access to all the articles, videos, and programs, as well as the best forum on the net. It's the only place to have full access to Coach Boyle. He's on every day. Check it out at StrengthCoach.com. I'm your host, Anthony Renna, and the show notes are located at StrengthCoachPodcast.com. If you want to get in touch with me, shoot me an email to strengthcoachpodcast@gmail.com. All right, right now, Perform Better is having their annual summer sale. Crazy blowout prices. Sale prices are sizzling this summer. Things are heating up. It's the biggest sale of the year and will go on through September 30th. All the top sellers are here: mini bands, super bands, cook bands, test kits, Dynamax balls, rollers, mats, kettlebells, ropes, ultimate sandbags, TRX, you name it, and the prices have been slashed. The summits are also here. Chicago is the next stop, July 20th to the 30th. And then Long Beach at the end of August. So register now at PerformBetter.com. All right, on the Coach's Corner, I spoke to Coach Boyle about the thread testing power and elasticity. That kind of got a lot of conversation between the two of us, as well as Tony Holler's article, 10 Sprint Facts I Wish Everyone Understood, which is interesting because then I decided to get Coach Holler on. So we have Tony Holler, 36-year veteran of coaching track, currently at Plainfield North in Illinois and a member of the Illinois Track and Field Hall of Fame. I spoke to Coach Holler on to talk about 10 sprint facts I wish everyone understood, his stance on the weight room, speed as a barometer of athleticism, his article 8 weeks of Lactic Training, his article Sunshine, Dopamine, and Sprinting, and so much more from the legendary Coach Holler. All right, for the Results Fitness Business of Fitness segment, Alan Cosgrove is on to talk about learning to sell, something that trainers don't seem to love to do. And for the Functional Movement System segment, we have a segment that Gray Cook did, a video about creating a system. Lots of things to get to, so let's get on the phone with Coach Boyle. All right, now it's time for the Coach's Corner with Coach Boyle. Coach, how you doing?
I am doing unbelievable, Anthony. Just sitting here watching it pour rain in lovely Reading, Massachusetts.
Raining here in New York too. I gotta love it though, because then I feel like I get more work done when it's raining. It's I don't have that itch to go outside.
I know I'm not going to mow my lawn today. That's for sure.
There you go, Coach. What an interesting thread. That I know you were talking about this in Functional Strength Coach 2, I think, with testing power and elasticity. But Matt, I can't really pronounce his name, Siniscialchi.
I think it's Siniscialchi or Siniscialchi.
Okay, I should know that of all people. He was just talking about testing power and elasticity with or without a small budget. And I thought there was some interest. Kaz had an interesting stand on it, talking about, doing standing vertical jump versus 6, 12, 18, and 24-inch box jumps into vertical jumps. So the more elastic athletes will jump higher than with that additional drop versus standing alone. Devin was talking about comparing counter movement jumps to non-counter movement, then to drop jumps. Can you just give us an overview and your thoughts on this thread and some of your ideas?
Well, it's really interesting because, as you said, I went into this in really great detail. I wrote an article on elasticity versus power, and I guess it's really hard for me because I started thinking, wow, should we be doing this more? Should we be doing a non-counter movement, hands on hips kind of jump? Should we be doing a 12-inch drop jump? Should we be comparing all three? And then I get back into the idea, and it's interesting. I was listening to a guy named Fergus Conley yesterday, who's he's director of sports science at University of Michigan. And one of the things that he said in the talk that I was listening to was, how does it affect the scoreboard? And so in my mind, I sort of expanded that to how would it affect the training program? Would I do something different if I had this information? And I was thinking about this yesterday because I was writing in the thread yesterday, and I was thinking, wow, should I go back and get some of this data? And then I said to myself, it's really not going to change how we train, because one of the things that we tried to do was figure out, okay, how can we in fact do this elasticity work? How can we develop that more reactive athlete? And truth be told, we haven't come up with a formula for it. We haven't been able to change what we do. And this is where I think, people are talking about velocity-based training, but I guess haven't been able to come up with the tool or the program that I feel like. And I think I forget where I saw it, maybe it was Twitter over the weekend, there was a picture of one of Bill Knowles' guys on the spring floor that they have. And if you remember, I posted the video of the spring floor. I bought a piece of the spring floor. But the only one who played with it was me at work, in terms of trying to develop some of that pogo ability. And I feel like, I have one piece of it. Should I get 6 pieces and start playing with it more? I don't know. And then I watched, I broke down, I think I told us, I broke down and bought a trampoline for Mark because he desperately wanted a trampoline. Yeah. He's always on his friends' trampolines. And I guess it just comes down to the fact that I don't have a safe method for developing that quantity. Even if I could sort of establish, all right, this person is more elastic than this person, then I still get back to, but what am I going to do about that once I know?
Coach, I know you say in the thread, the springy, reactive athlete is the goal. That's for obvious reasons. We want people to be super athletic and be able to react to things. But could that quality, and I obviously this goes back to the, talent is overrated, or the gene pool, whatever that other book was. Could some of this just be genetics, springy, or could it be like a learned skill as opposed to something that, like, kind of, we're going to segue eventually into Tony Holler's article on speed and his thoughts on strength, but could it just be almost where it's a skill we can start to teach somebody to be springy, and that strength might have nothing to do with it?
I think probably the answer would be that it's someplace in the middle, in the sense that, do I think, and that was one of the things I wrote in that kind of elasticity versus power article, is that we had kids when we looked in, and we were sort of using the 4-jump test on the just jump as a measure of elasticity and the single jump as a measure of power. And one of the things that we saw was that the guys who were good on the 4-jump and not as good on the 1-jump were guys that we would have, if we were trying to figure out, I would have said they're more athletic. In the sense that not our conventional sense. Like I always think of, when I think of athletic, I got a kid right now named Miles Wood that's training with us who plays for the New Jersey Devils. He's a freak athlete. He's got a 37.5-inch vertical jump. He's got he just ran a 1.25 standing 10 today, which the best, we have only had a couple guys run in the 1.3s. And I would look at that and say, that's really athletic. Yet there are some guys that, from a playing standpoint, there are guys that are better than him who have less of that pure power thing than he has. And some of those guys are guys who do better in that elasticity test. At least that's what we found at BU. We had a couple guys who had sub 25 vertical jumps, and I would almost look at those guys and think, how is a guy playing for us and really contributing at the Division I level with a 24.5-inch vertical jump? But one of the things that we saw in the 4-jump test was that some of those guys, they'd average 22. And that was where we started looking at, if you remember that article, we were looking at ratios of 4-jump to single jump. And the guys who were harder to explain in a conventional sense had a much higher ratio. They tended to be above 90%. And I would still be testing it. My problem is I still go back to that same idea of I don't know what to do once I know that. So I stopped worrying about knowing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get it. It's just, I think it's one of those things because I've often, obviously with the demographic that was coming into 5-iron was anywhere from age 45 for the most part to 83. And my pitch to them partially with some of the like low-level plyos and medicine ball work is, look, we're trying to get you to be more athletic. Some of these guys weren't athletic, and I think that's why, you're always pushing multi-sport. There's a reason why you push multi-sport athletes, because those are the kids that tend to be more athletic. So it's almost like by the time we get some of these people, there's not much that we can do. I still feel that I want to kind of awaken some of these things in people, and I feel like we can, and I feel like I have done that. But to a certain, they're not going at a high level. But it's an interesting kind of situation to try to, is there almost like the windows of trainability where there's those early windows and then there's the second window. And if you didn't get the first window, you might not be able to get that full potential of speed. But I still think there's something there that we can do.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that's one of the things that keeps us searching. I just don't know what it is. And I don't know what it is safely. Because again, I really contemplated, in all honesty, mini trampolines. And then I thought, if you bring a bunch of these mini trampolines in, are you just, you've got this, I'm asking for trouble. And that's what I think what Bill has done is interesting in terms of putting a spring floor in, a gymnastics spring floor does give you some opportunity to maybe do some things that other people aren't doing from that elastic capacity standpoint. But then I get into, from like a business practical standpoint, how much space can I dedicate to this spring floor so that I can get that elastic response? Because as you said, with kids, thinking about windows of trainability, this is one of the things, when I look at how much more athletic Mark is becoming because of the trampoline, I think it's worth the gamble on my insurance.
Yeah.
Which I think, probably sounds a little bit crazy, but all of a sudden he's doing backflips and he's working on, he wants to be able to do a standing backflip on the ground. That's his goal. And I think that's great for him in terms of developing athleticism. And I'm hoping that when he's 13 or 14, he can do a standing backflip on the ground. And I hope that when he's 17 or 18, he can still do that. He still possesses that level of athletic ability that will allow him to do some things like that. But there's no way that for me in a training setting, I would be comfortable saying, hey, everybody, I don't even like when the kids used to go to judo, they would do forward rolls and backward rolls. I won't even do that because I'm worried about kids' necks.
Yeah.
Because I guess, maybe, everybody's always accused me of this anyway. People say, are you so paranoid about people getting hurt? I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm really paranoid about people getting hurt.
Yeah. But even with that, another question that kind of comes to my mind as soon as you talk about the spring floor, the springboard and the trampoline, similar to what some people like Cressy and Guido Van Ryssen talked about with balance is, if you learn balance, if you're balancing on a BOSU or if you're balancing on this artificial surface, you're only getting better at balancing on that artificial surface. So same thing, I understand about the trampoline. The trampoline could teach somebody that skill and the timing a lot more safely than they were on the floor. But are they really developing what they need? Is it just learning the skill safely, or is that springboard going to make them that much more springy?
And, I keep giving you the same sort of vanilla answer. I think it's a little bit of both because it's interesting. One of his friends who he does it with is doing all kinds of crazy stuff in terms of twisting and now you get into, the movement variability thing. I don't think there's any question that ability to understand where you are in space is important. I also think that ability to develop the power to be able to do that, they're doing, on the trampoline, they're doing layout backflips. And again, I don't know. I can't say to you, I know this. I can't say to you, I'm certain about this, but I can say to you that I think that there is benefit to this.
Yeah.
So it's just, as I said, it's a very, very interesting kind of dilemma. And particularly, as I said, I always go back, because part of me is I always go back to this idea of being a businessman and thinking, okay, as a businessman, how do I incorporate what I'm thinking about from a business standpoint with what I'm thinking about from a scientific standpoint, because they don't always meet up the way that you would like them to.
Absolutely.
And so, the things, the sort of, I always, again, you've seen enough of my talks, we always talk about kind of this risk-benefit ratio idea. And I've got to be thinking about the risk-benefit ratio, and is there enough benefit to justify the risk? And again, from time to time, I say yes, and that kind of leads into you talking about the Tony Holler article. But when you talk about that article and timing more often, I've avoided timing for the same reason, because I'm concerned about the risk. I'm very risk averse, and the only time we seem to get pull muscles is when we start timing. And so, but we've gone to timing now. We're timing 10-yard dashes twice a week. As of last week and the week before, that was something I said, okay, I can make that change. And the response has been entirely positive, I think, both from a staff and from an athlete standpoint, in terms of the athletes like the competitive nature of trying to beat their best time. And so now when you start thinking about neurology and neural drive and 100% effort, you're getting that for at least 6 or 7 or 8 reps a week, where somebody, okay, I'm sprinting as fast as I can because I'm trying to beat my best time. So I think that was an area where I looked at and said, hey, there's a change I can make in our programming that's acceptable to me based on the information that I've gotten. Whereas looking at, like I said, the elasticity thing, I don't know what that's going to change in terms of, I guess my point is it won't change the plyout progression. But the other thing I am thinking about is maybe as like a phase 4 or 5 thing, we've never depth jumped either. And for the same reason. Mm-hmm. We've never done drop jumps. We've never tested that kind of thing. That maybe we would start to incorporate something like that we have not done in the past. So there are some kind of little pieces of the puzzle I think we can play with.
Yeah. Let's just spend a little more time on the Tony Holler article, and I got to get him on the show, and who knows, maybe it'll be this show. But one of the things that I had actually posted a question on the forum, just like, hey, did this article rub anybody the wrong way? And especially the weightlifting does not improve speed. And one of the thing I think we can pick apart every sentence here, right? But in my opinion, kids who lift weights get better at lifting weights. And then, I get that. But the typical weight room celebrates indiscriminate hypertrophy, bodybuilding. So I don't know. I'm wondering, does the typical weight room still celebrate that? Or am I in a bubble? Or I feel like,
I think you are in a bubble. He's in high school. Mm-hmm. And he's in a public high school.
Yeah.
So I think more than likely, again, and this is what we always talk about, kind of everybody has their lens through which they see things. And I think, and this is one of the reasons we were talking about with the 10-yard dashes. We did vertical jumps and 10-yard dashes today. And I was saying to Ken Whittier, hey, I really want to rank order these because, again, as I said, Miles Wood has the highest vertical jump at 37 and the fastest 10-yard dash time at 1.25. I do not consider that to be coincidental. I do also believe that the way to develop that power, if you don't have it, is through strength training and through power training, because I have seen that with my own eyes. I've seen kids increase their vertical jump by a foot during the course of a college career. I've seen guys go from 28 to 40. I've seen guys go from 20 to 32. So I do believe, when you get into action, reaction, physics. So I guess in my situation, I'd say I have a small area of disagreement. If there were 10 points in that article, I would strongly agree with 9, and I would strongly disagree with 1. But my thing with the article was make sure you read the other 9. What we do is we get caught on the 1.
Yeah.
And that's what happens to us field wide is people, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with one point that he made. It's like the McGill thing sometimes with people. I don't agree with that. I'm like, but what about all the rest of the stuff that he said? Don't get caught up on the one thing that you don't agree with, and then for that reason dismiss everything that the person said. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, Tony's got 36 years of experience doing this too.
Really, really good results. Not average results. Yeah. Exceptional results with 36 years of experience. And so you have to start looking and thinking, why does he think like he does? Instead of thinking, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. And I think that's the reaction that some people get right away. He says weight training doesn't help speed. He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. And then they discount the entire 36 years of experience. And the difference, and this is one of the things, I had to talk right away with people at work. I said, there's a couple things you need to understand. We live in the contact sport world. We are not track and field people. We need more muscle mass, and we need injury resistance. So even if we were accepting his theory, we would not stop weight training. So that was one of the points that I was trying to make from a staff standpoint. So don't even disregard that part because it's not going to change what we do. But then think about that part and ask yourself whether you believe it or not, and ask yourself yes or no and why, which is what I started to do. And again, my experience tells me something different than what Tony's experience tells him. That does not make Tony right and me wrong, or me right and Tony wrong. It only means that, and that was why I use the analogy, Carl Lewis versus Ben Johnson. There's a reason that the guys who take steroids run very fast. They take steroids not to run very fast, but to get stronger so that they can run very fast. And I think that's another aspect that we have to be able to look at and realize that you've got to think the problem through in greater detail, which I find we have a tendency to not do. We, again, as I said, we get caught up on the initial, okay, here's my objection, and all I want to talk to you about is my objection. I don't want to talk to you about the whole remainder of the thought process. So that's why, and I love it. I mean, I sent you another article of his to publish. A guy like him, he excites me to no end because he's making me think, and he's making the people around me think at a much, I guess I want to say a much higher level than we were thinking before. Because whenever anybody, much like with McGill, when McGill first started talking about no flexion, he challenges you because you sit there and say, oh, but your reaction is, oh, but I do that. Oh, but I like that. It's much like my stance, with people, with bilateral versus unilateral. The people's automatic reaction is, Mike Boyle's an idiot because he doesn't know what he's talking about. But I think what you need to do is look at these people and say, why are these intelligent people saying the things that they're saying that would produce this almost visceral reaction in people? And the reason they are, obviously, is because they really believe it. The reason they are is because they've seen it. So I think that's the kind of stuff that we've got to be conscious of as we kind of move forward in the process of not being so quick to dismiss the things that we disagree with.
Absolutely. Great article. And again, I got to get a Coach Holler on here. And that article is called 10 Sprints I Wish Everyone Understood. And anybody can read that. That's on the free articles section on strengthcoach.com. So, Coach, well, thanks for coming on, talking a little bit about the elasticity and some strength and power and athleticism, et cetera. So we'll talk to you next week.
Great conversation, Anthony. I really appreciate it. I think people will get a lot out of this one. Hopefully it'll lead people to, wow, I got to go look at the site and think, and want to interact with some of these people.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Business of Fitness segment here on the Strength Coach podcast. This is the segment where we try to help you, because you guys are all great trainers. I know you are if you're listening to this. I'm going to help you try to become great business owners and make some money and take your business to the next level. So today we're going to talk about learning to sell. Everyone thinks it's a dirty 5-letter word, right? Sales. I like to sell. I just like to communicate with people and coach them, and that's great. Let me explain something. If I asked you to come, if I was going to do a seminar for charity, and I asked you to collect money at the door for people to come in for my seminar or my workout, Would you be able to do that? Yeah, you would. You'd have no problem with it. If I sold a product at the end with all the money going to me, would you be able to help me collect the money? Of course you would. So most people don't have a problem with sales. They have a problem with selling when they have to keep the money. That's a self-worth issue, right? And that's for a deeper talk one day, is that you don't believe you're worth it. But a lot of guys will tell me things like, I just need more leads. I'm good at sales. This is the reverse argument from the last one. Like, that's good, but how many leads did you get this month? I didn't get any. And the leads that you do get are people who come in looking to join your gym, and they're looking to sign up. So you've become a business owner that reacts. People come in or they don't, and you just sell whoever's there. And you're not even really selling them. You're just taking their order, right? You show up at McDonald's and you're like, hey, I want a Big Mac. Even a McDonald's server will say, do you want fries with that? They don't just take your order. They try to get a sale and convince you. So there's a difference between being an order taker and being able to sell, right? People show up and they want to join your gym and you get them a membership. You didn't do anything. That's just taking an order. So you got to learn how to sell, right? Learning how to sell and teaching your staff to sell is absolutely necessary to run a successful company. You need to sell something to someone every day, right? Convincing someone to do an extra set, that's a sales pitch. Right? You got to convince them of the value of that. Convincing someone to join your gym is a sales pitch. Convincing someone to buy into your nutrition program, that's a sales pitch, right? Know everything about the service you are selling and believe in it and live in it. And if you absolutely believe in your product in your gym, there should be no problem learning to sell it. It's not a dirty word. I know when we first opened, I was very clear that my core, I didn't want to be a salespeople. I didn't want to have salespeople. I just thought, well, just be good at what we do and people will pay us numbers. Discussing a sales goal wasn't even like in my language, right? So it's something that I'm not telling you I was good at this either. This is something I've learned too. And I quickly learned that I needed to figure it out and start making some money, right? I hear people all the time that they'll say, the field of dreams, build it and they will come. Well, if you actually go back and listen to that movie, the actual phrase is, if you build it, he will come. One guy, one customer who in the movie, by the way, was a family member who'd probably want a discount if they showed up at your gym as it was, right? So learn sales skills, learn how to sell, study selling as much as you're studying exercise and program design. Stop being just an order taker and start understanding sales, and don't be ashamed of it. Sales is a powerful tool for your business. Guys, that's it for this episode. Write down, your notes. I will learn how to sell and your action steps on how to do that. And hopefully I presented a good enough sales pitch in the last few minutes to convince you that learning how to sell is worthwhile. Guys, this is Alan Cosgrove. Talk to you guys next time. Bye.
All right, now it's time for the Hit the Gym with the Strength Coach. And today I have on Tony Holler, and Tony has taught chemistry and coached track for 36 years at 3 different high schools, Harrisburg in Illinois, Franklin, Tennessee, and right now for the last 11 years at Plainfield North in Illinois. He's a member of the Illinois Track and Field Hall of Fame. He co-directs the Track Football Consortium, held twice a year. He's written over 100 articles promoting the sport of track and field and sharing everything he knows. His articles can be found at itcca.com. We will have links to all these, freelapusa.com and simplyfaster.com. Coach Holler, thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
All right. Well, I guess Coach Boyle had somebody had tweeted your 10 sprint facts. I wish everyone understood, and he absolutely loved the article and got in touch with you, and that's kind of why we're even talking today, because we got you on strengthcoach.com because there's some quote unquote controversial for strength coaches anyway of your points. Controversial facts. So, but let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about 10 sprint facts I wish everyone understood. Let's have you expand on racehorses are not workhorses, because I think that's something that a lot of strength coaches need to understand.
I think maybe all coaches need to understand that. I think back, I was a 3-sport athlete and a coach's kid. My dad coached for 47 years. So I was right in the middle of it all the way through. And I look back, in football, every practice took us to failure. We worked for as long as we could until we couldn't work anymore. In basketball, every practice took us to failure. In track, every practice took us to failure. We would run 10 200s, and if we didn't make time, then we had to run extra. It was absolutely a max capacity type of thought process. It was like they were preparing us to be a good soldier and storm Iwo Jima or something. And looking back, it's absolutely stupid the way that was done. And then what's sad is that people are still coaching the way they were coached, which means that they are working people. They celebrate #the grind. They talk about warriors and they have Army slogans on the Navy SEAL slogans on the walls, all those things. And really what we should be doing is improving performance, which brings us to speed, which means that we want to produce racehorses who can go really fast. And of course, we know racehorses are very competitive. They're not soft. They're very competitive and they're very fast. We do not want to produce plow horses. And I think that goes across the board, whether you're a lineman, whether you're a wide receiver, whether you're a basketball player, a track athlete for sure. All those sports, I've even seen softball teams conditioning and just wearing kids out. Absolutely misguided time, makes the sport ugly and awful, and just don't have to do it. You want to make racehorses, not plow horses.
All right. Well, I think along the same lines, running is not sprinting, and number two, running does not improve speed. Just give us an overview. It must kill you to see some of these coaches, sport coaches, running the kids for these slow distance.
Yes. As a matter of fact, if you are having these long practices and the kids are running at 3/4 speed or half speed the entire practice, you are actually in the majority. And of course, if you know anything about human history, you really don't want to be in the majority. Those coaches are misguided. What you want is full speed. Coaches talk like that sometimes. Hey, go fast, go fast. We want to be full speed on every rep. But then they don't have a practice plan that allows that. So the only way you can get fast, for example, with my sprinters, we do very minimum effective dose. Our practices are 35 or 40 minutes long. Our speed days, which we try to go 2 workouts a week as speed days, we will always on speed days time sprints, and we will try to run, every kid will try to run faster than they've ever run in their life. I say that most kids have maybe 3 speed gears. Really good athletes have 4. And for those athletes, we're trying to find the 5th gear every single day. And sometimes it takes months for them to find a 5th gear, and sometimes they will never find it. But the ones that find a 5th gear have truly improved their speed.
And Coach, I guess a lot of coaches might kind of come back with you and to you and say, but Coach, that seems like you're setting them up for injury. I've read a bunch of your articles, and I even was talking to you about, because I felt like it would be right up your alley, the book Peak Performance, Elevate Your Game, Avoid Burnout, and Thrive with the New Science of Success, which talks a lot about rest. So what you didn't really mention in the article in terms of is that how much you really believe in that rest, and obviously with the shorter practices, but just touch on that a little bit about a little bit more about the structure and how much rest you feel like they need if they're running some of that, and the danger of that the comeback that people would say that coach, you're setting them up for a possible injury if you're running them out all out all the time.
Yeah, what's funny is that I talk all the time about the coaches that work their kids too hard, too long, too much, and that is truly how you get injuries. Football teams that practice 10, 11, 12 hours a week, and then they have 15 guys on the sideline out of uniform on Friday night. That's unacceptable. Actually, my program is built on rest in a twist of what Bill Bowerman said, the famous track coach from Oregon. He actually said our hard days are never hard enough and our easy days are never easy enough. And he believed in the hard day, easy day, hard day, easy day type of format. Well, I believe our fast days are never fast enough, and our easy days are never easy enough. So what we do, let's talk about rest inside of a speed training session. This is, if you sent me 3 kids today and we're going to do a sprint session, basically we would work on speed drills, which is code for mechanics, time for teaching, time to wake up our nervous system. We would do that. Maybe 12 different things we'll do over a 15-minute period, which means we have about 45 seconds rest in between each one. During that time, we're teaching mechanics, and then we would run maybe 3 sprints, and maybe 3 40-yard dashes. We may time the last 10 meters of that 40 as a secondary time with free lap. We might just do 10-meter flies, but we would only do 3 of those, and the rest in between would be about 5 minutes. So when my kids leave a sprint workout, not only do they have gas in their tank, they actually would kind of like to stay and do more, and I send them home. So the amount of rest is huge. That's called minimum effective dose, and we are very minimal. Now, the next day we would not sprint. We would do alternative stuff. That's stuff I call X Factor. And then after 4 days, we would go into a 3-day weekend and really, really compensate. If I was coaching football, we would sprint 3 days a week. We would practice on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I'd give them Thursday off. On Tuesdays, we would not sprint. We would sprint only on Monday, no sprint Tuesday, sprint again Wednesday. Thursday would be a day of rest, and we would be the fastest team in America on Friday. And that's not only the fastest, we'd also be the healthiest. So I totally reject the idea that running fast causes injury. I think that people who aren't used to running fast, that might cause injury then. But my kids are sprinters, and they sprint all the time.
Love it. It was in your other article, but I have to mention this because you just mentioned the 3-day weekend. You said, in your football season, the football guys, there's no lifting on legs until Thursday, and you take Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. Some people call it a 3-day weekend. I call it super compensation, and I think that's it just goes in line with the rest of what you're talking about. I love that quote.
What we do in the winter, we have our football program and our track program merged all winter, which is a wonderful thing. I'm good friends with the football coach here. We disagree on almost everything, seems like at times, but we get together for the benefit of kids. And what we do is strength in the weight room, speed on the track. So what he has agreed to do for me is that they will not lift legs until Thursday. We do a speed day Monday on the track. On the track, we do an X Factor on Tuesday. We have a speed day on Wednesday, and we do an X Factor on Thursday. So those kids that are lifting, and we have over 100 kids in our program every day, about 150 on our roster. Half the kids are in the weight room, half the kids are on the track. After an hour, we switch places. But he agrees to not lift legs until Thursday. And what that does is I believe lifting legs becomes a 48-hour hangover, and it just ruins sprinters, and I hate it. But this is one way where I can accept squats. And so when they lift legs hard on Thursday, they have no sprinting on Friday and Saturday and Sunday. And those 3 days allows those kids to not only rest, but the most important misunderstanding of coaches is that kids don't only need rest, they need growth. And that 3-day period allows them to super compensate and grow, and they come back as better athletes on Monday, which is very important.
Love it. Yeah, and I think more and more people, not only in the field of what we're doing, but in athletics, but really just in success and performance, are starting to understand. We're seeing more books come out about understanding, how important rest is and getting away from things like work. But let's segue this into your the weightlifting does not improve speed. You say lifting weights will improve strength, and that strength may transfer to athleticism, but won't directly improve speed. Can you expand on this?
Sure. I am not a believer in transfer per se. We never push or pull a sled. I think that pushing and pulling sleds make you really good at pushing and pulling sleds. I don't believe that the clean is some magical exercise that makes you fast. I think cleaning makes you better at cleaning. So therefore, weightlifting to me as a sprint coach is basically a deal with the devil, which is, of course, football coaches, where they need to lift and they're going to lift. So all I ask for is please don't ruin my sprinters by lifting legs before a sprint workout. Let my track guys during the season be pain-free in the legs. That's really important to me. I'm a believer that the things we do in the weight room will not help us in sprinting, but as long as we're sprinting along with what we're doing, it won't hurt us. And the key thing about sprinting is doing a lot of sprinting and doing a lot of jumping. Those things are really, really important. The things that I really speak up against is when I hear a strength and conditioning coach, and I totally understand if you own a weight room and your future career is in a weight room, you want to say things like the weight room prevents injuries and makes you faster. But those two things to me are just not true. I don't want to take your job away because I think there's a place for strength, strong kids. I love strong kids. But when I look at my sprint group, which is about 50 kids every year in track, half of them are football players, which means they're going to lift weights a lot. The other half are not. Some of them play in the band. And if you came to see my sprinters, I don't know if you could tell the difference between the weightlifting group and the non-weightlifting group. You definitely could not tell a difference in their speed. And what's shocking is the non-weightlifting group will look like they lift weights. And that leads me to believe that sprinting in and of itself is an incredible strength exercise that's totally neglected by the common thought that the only way you get strong is by lifting weights.
All right. Definitely interesting. Now, you also said the 40-yard dash is a measure of both acceleration, which is strength and explosion, and max speed. Okay, that was in the article. And
Yep.
Devin McConnell had asked, if strength is a factor in acceleration and lifting weights improves strength, wouldn't it mean that lifting weights would improve the acceleration component?
Yep, I think that's brilliant. I mean, there's no question that strength is involved there. There are some really, really smart track coaches that all they want to do is talk about acceleration. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. One of the things is they feel like acceleration is very coachable, and more so than max speed, so they want to focus on excel. It has a strength and explosive component. Absolutely. Could you get better at acceleration by doing cleans and doing Bulgarian split squats and the like? Of course you could. You might get better acceleration by sprinting up hills. What I have found is actually the act of accelerating at max speed, at absolute, that's why we time 40s. By timing 40s, we are working on acceleration and specifically working on the strength required to move the body into a position where it's going 10 meters per second eventually. And so I just really believe by learning, by doing the specific act. That is not to say that you can't improve acceleration by squatting more weight. I just love the purity of doing the acceleration itself. Therefore, the 40-yard dash becomes a really, really, really important thing in our program. And if you look at the NFL Combine, the people are really good at the 40, no matter what position you play, offensive line, defensive line, corner, running back, wide receiver. The people who are really, really good at the 40-yard dash have very successful careers, and the people that aren't good at the 40 are not as successful. That's why the 40 is the number one quantitative measurement of athleticism.
Love it. Let's let's actually segue that into it, because you were talking about that speed is the barometer of athleticism. I thought this was a really interesting part of the article. You were talking about the director of sports performance for Purdue men's basketball believes max speed sprinting is the key to basketball athleticism. Same thing, you feel like volleyball players could use it. Just expand on this barometer of athleticism.
There's nothing that I know of where you are moving yourself or moving anything at 10 meters per second, with the exception of sprinting. In the weight room, you can move a bar. If I mean, it looks like a blur when you're doing it, but you can move a bar about 2 meters per second. The act of moving your body at 10 meters per second in and of itself is an amazing neurological and strength thing. For example, volleyball players, the faster you are in the 10-meter fly, the quicker you will be in volleyball, and you will jump better. There's a reciprocal thing between jumping and sprinting. There is no reciprocity. There's no reciprocal relationship between the bench press and sprinting. That's where my questions about transfer come in. Josh Bonnetel from Purdue, I love what he said, that even though you never get to 10 meters per second on the basketball court, ever, those guys, fast guys, play in second and third gear. It is still important to learn how to move your body at that speed so that third gear feels very comfortable and you're in total control in third gear on the basketball court. I believe that's true in every sport. A wide receiver will never run 10 meters per second. They're carrying pads, they're tired, all that kind of stuff. But if they can run a 10.50 in the 100-yard dash, those fourth gear routes will feel totally comfortable. They'll see the ball better, all those things. Athleticism, if somebody says somebody's an athlete, the first things I think is run and jump. That's the first things I think. Maybe if I worked in a weight room, I would think squat and bench. I don't know. But as a coach and not a weight room person, I want guys that can sprint and jump. I don't care what size they are. The top offensive tackles picked in the NFL draft every year are the fastest guys at the NFL Combine. Even though their first two steps are backwards and not done fast, there's something about the ability to explode, accelerate, and max speed that makes an offensive tackle much better if they are fast.
Coach, have you explored or kind of looked into velocity-based training at all?
Sure. I would think anything done in a way that better replicates athleticism, like moving quickly in the weight room, makes total sense.
All right. Coach, let's go into your we are not the result of what we did yesterday, and explain your 666 theory.
Yeah, there's a couple things that I call mine. Feed the cats is mine. Record, rank, and publish are mine. And of course, the 666 theory. 666, of course, play on the Omen and Damien and the devil and all that stuff. But anyway, if I start something new today, it does not change me tomorrow. It makes perfect sense to me. But yet we see coaches on the week of the state track meet really doubling down in practice. And to quote Bowerman again, hey, the hay is in the barn at that time. You cannot change a person today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. You cannot work out today, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, and be better on Friday. Practice is very overrated, I think. When you look at the 666 theory, what I'm saying is we are not the result of what we did yesterday or the day before. We are the results of our last 6 weeks, our last 6 months, our last 6 years. We are the sum total of everything that's gone before us. So we cannot wait to start sprinting in May if you want to be fast at the end of May. You've got to sprint all year long, and you've got to stick with it. You've got to be consistent. Of course, we go with rest and all those things. I think that the best way to look at 666 is a diet. or a weightlifting program or anything, one of the toughest things for anybody who starts a new program is that they get frustrated that they do not see results quick enough. And we all know, people in our profession know that it takes weeks. It takes 6 weeks maybe before any adaptations begin. So that's why we sprint all year long. We don't ever have any periodization. The only type of periodization I ever say we have football season, which I want all my sprinters to do, and in season we do start doing some lactate workouts, which is not sprinting, but sprinting or trying to sprint for 20 to 30 seconds at a time with incomplete rest, which is hard to do and all that. But overall, you've got to stick with your program.
Good stuff. Coach Boyle, in that thread, had just kind of mentioned the steroid issue in terms of if it's not about strength, if strength is not about improving speed, why do you think that there's so much steroid use if strength doesn't help?
Well, that's a great point. And I go back to a former athlete that I coached that he was a long jump state champion, 23.6, and he weighed 210 when he did this. And he also ran a 48-second quarter, and he was very, very athletic. He went away to a Big Ten school, came back 40 pounds heavier after 1 year.
Wow.
And yes, and his the first time I timed him in the 40, he went 4.29. So in my opinion, that kind of thing does not happen in the weight room. I believe steroids are better than there's something about steroids that really improve sprinting. I don't know what it is, but I know that if you just get 30 or 40 pounds heavier, you will be slower if there's not steroids involved. And that may be a quirky, weird, radical conspiracy theory type thing, but I've just seen too many kids put on artificial weight by lifting alone and diet alone, and it does not seem to do anything for speed except for slow them down. By the way, the kid I'm talking about played in the NFL for a couple years. I mean, obviously those kind of kids are freaks, and but I just think that if we base our training on cheats and freaks, which I'm sorry if I offend people, but I think college football is full of steroids. I think NFL football is full of steroids. We know that track and field people get busted all the time. That we have to be really careful about basing our training on cheats and freaks at the professional level. And it's just my. I've read a lot about Ben Johnson and Charlie Francis and all that stuff. I just don't see how Carl Lewis could have gone through the Ben Johnson program and gotten faster. I think it would have made him slower.
All right. Coach, let's go. You were talking about before your record, rank, and publish.
Yep.
You're recording so much. You said you've recorded 200,000 40s in your career. You do 10,000 a year, which if you took the weekends off, that's 40 a day. Coach, are you using what technology are you using to kind of track any data?
That's a great question. When I started this, and I owe all of my Feed the Cats ideas, when I say feed the cats, we're talking about treating all kids like they're cats, that if you want them to move fast, you got to give them a lot of rest. And you got to, of course, cats are extremely competitive, and so you got to feed their competitive nature. Well, when I started this 20 years ago, it was all handheld 40-yard dashes, and I'd record 3 times. I would average the average of their best 2 because they're handheld, and I would type it all out and then post it on a bulletin board the next day. And that takes a lot of work, but that bulletin board became the most popular bulletin board in my school, which probably led to the fact that we won several state championships and all that kind of stuff. Now, of course, technology's changed a little bit. I still do handheld 40s, and the reason for that is because I have 20 years of data. The other thing about handheld 40s is they're really, really fast. This past year, I coached the fastest freshman in the United States and maybe the world. A 14-year-old kid named Marcellus Moore. Marcellus, at the age of 14, ran a 10.40 in the 100, a time that would have placed him third in the Big Ten. He ran that at our state meet 3 times in the 1040s as a 14-year-old. Anyway, this kid runs 4.18 in the 40. Now, that's a handheld time, but 4.18 sounds pretty fast. And I want our times to sound fast. I want to encourage speed at all times. So I've resisted the urge to go automated in the 40. Now, the thing that I invented myself is that for every 40, we get a secondary quantitative measurement of speed. And it is actually a better measurement of speed than the 40, and that is max speed. So we time with free lap. I write for free lap, and I've gotten my equipment for free because I've written so many articles for them. So anyway, free lap's a great thing, and we set up cones in the last 10 meters of the 40-yard dash. And so when a kid runs a 40, I'll write down 4.23 or whatever it is if he's super fast, and 0.94. Well, that 0.94 was his time automated from free lap. And so our winter program will show 40-yard times and rankings and 10-meter fly times and rankings. And what I have found is that max speed has very few false positives. People with incredible max speeds are always your best athletes. They're your fastest kids and your best athletes. Our school record 0.92. Usain Bolt's the only man that's ever run 0.81. I believe he ran 0.80 in a split in the Olympics once. It's just an amazing thing. And so what we do now, instead of putting it on a bulletin board, is I type it into a Google sheet, a Google Doc, and then I tweet it out, publish it, and I tell people that there's a billion Chinese every night that are checking their times on the World Wide Web. So what this does, my sprinters never forget their spikes. They absolutely run every rep with reckless abandon, and it almost coaches for you. So the whole quantification of speed is just so important to everything we do.
Interesting. So interesting. Coach, let's go into 8 weeks of Lactic Training. I just want you to get some really great points. We did post this or a link to it on strengthcoach.com as well for everybody who hasn't read it. But give us an overview of this article and what you're doing in the winter.
Okay, yeah, that winter program is that Monday through Thursday thing. And, if I would probably, if it's just up to me, I would go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because I love that Tuesday off, Thursday off, and all that. But our all football coaches want to go every day. Our football coach, thank goodness, loves to go home on Fridays. So our compromise is that we go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we do our speed days on Monday and Wednesday. We do our X Factor days on Tuesday and Thursday. On X Factor, what we do is X stands for unknown, like X-rays or unknown rays. Well, with our X Factor day, what we'll do is we'll come in and do things that we don't do on speed days. We do a lot of what I call cat jumps, where we jump off the bleachers and stick the landing. We'll do depth jumps, where we jump off the bleachers and jump over a hurdle or 2 hurdles. We do wickets. We do what we call leg swings. We do med ball throws. We do balance drills. We do quickness drills. Everything is alactic, though, which means 5 seconds or less with max speed, with enough rest. This is the key thing. Enough rest to repeat that max effort again. My football coach wants to do sled pushes. Okay, that's fine. Go ahead and push a sled. But coach, make sure you're not doing it to make them a plow horse. Make them a racehorse. He looks at me like, what? What are you talking about? And what I tell him is, make sure that you give them enough rest in between their reps to do it at 100% the next time. That is, to me, the definition of alactic training: 5 seconds or less, enough rest to repeat at max speed. So getting back to our schedule, we go Monday and Wednesday, speed days, Tuesday and Thursday, X Factor. We take 3 days off. Remember that our group includes football, track, and anybody else that wants to come out there. There's nothing specific. There's no footballs. There's no starting blocks, nothing like that. Typically, the varsity football team goes in and lifts for an hour while I have all the rest of the kids. And then we flip it, and the varsity football kids come out to our track, our indoor track. We're lucky enough to have an indoor field house. So the kids work for about 2 hours after school every night. Funny story, when I first proposed this to our football coach, I was showing him a video of X Factor type stuff, and he got really excited. He said, "So you're going to work with all of our kids doing all this stuff?" And I said, "Yep." He goes, "It's going to be great. We're going to make it mandatory." And I said, "No, we're not. We're going to make it so good that the kids want to come." Yeah. And he said, "Well, but if they don't, we're going to make it mandatory." And that is just so precious, such a football coach's mentality. But we've really done that. We've made it so good that we have over 100 kids showing up every day with no threat. If you miss today, tomorrow we're going to kill you or anything like that. They come because they want to be there.
Love it. Coach, in the article you wrote, you said, "We run solo. I don't believe in racing until track season." Give us a little bit more into that.
What I found is that kids will love running when they're not getting beat. Remember, athletes are like cats. They are very, very competitive. A non-competitive athlete is not an athlete. So you feed their competitive spirit sometimes by not letting them get beat. We have kids that weigh 260 and have ankles the size of tree trunks that celebrate the first time they break 6 in the 40. And that's what we're after. We want every single kid to truly run against the clock and not run against people who are beating him. So the other thing that happens when you run solo is you can actually play with the variables a little bit. I have kids say, "Coach, what should I do to get faster?" I say, "Well, play with the variables." And, like what? Like, well, get out, get long, try to be bigger in the arms next time. Well, that didn't work. So, well, maybe you need to work at hitting the track a little harder. So by running where you're not thinking about winning, losing, you're not thinking about the guy to your left, the guy to your right, you're able to focus on sprint mechanics and really, really work on what we're trying to work on. And they also can experiment. So I really love the solo run thing all through. And then, of course, we get real competitive in the track season.
Great stuff. Coach, you've been talking a lot about your working with your football coach, and you have some, obviously some opinions on football coaches. And you have a new article coming out, new ideas for old school football coaches. So, talk to us about, because we see this a lot on the forum. A lot of strength coaches, they always ask, like, how do I do this with the football coach, or even the basketball coach or the soccer coach? It's that relationship with those coaches. So give us an overview of what this article is going to be and how you've managed to kind of have this good relationship with your football coach.
Yeah, like when I say we have a good relationship, remember that does not mean we always agree. We've had it out a few times, but I'm so proud of the fact that the two of us have always put kids first and have learned how to compromise. And I don't think no matter how much maybe I'm the most cocky person in the world, think I know everything, but I know that 10 years from now, I will look back and say a lot of the things I was doing wasn't too smart. I've learned from experience that this, and this was really dumb. So you've got to put your ego aside a little bit and learn to compromise, to have that good relationship with people. And the relationship we have is so important to both my track team and his football team. My track team got 8th in the state last year. His football team played in the state championship. So those relationships are good for kids, and what's good for kids, all that stuff. So anyway, the article is kind of my football manifesto. I believe that football coaches at every level are absolute knotheads at times. They are Neanderthals. They want You talked to. I was talking to somebody that's a strength conditioning coach for an NFL team very recently, and he said, "You would not believe when we lose, it always comes down to we need to lift more, practice harder, practice longer. That's always the go-to with football coaches." And so, basically, my new ideas for old school football coaches will be a dissertation and a very long one. It's 11 pages long. It's 4,000 words, and that's after editing. So basically, it will be all about the fact that you can't do more is more. You got to do less is more. Race horses, of course, over workhorses. Things like conditioning is absolutely insane and stupid. That days off may be more important than days on. I say the fact that as a sprint coach, if we think that taking a day off will make us faster at the next meet, we will take a day off. A football coach is so bound to the chains of the past that a day off, they feel like they're going to go to hell or something. They feel like they have to practice 2 hours, 3 hours. Funny story, I talked to somebody yesterday, said that their football coach is pretty old school. He gave them Labor Day off last year, and the next day they practiced for 5 hours to make up for the day off. That's the type of insanity that my article attacks, and I think it's going to be a good one. I think a lot of football coaches are going to hate me for it, but sometimes you need to throw some stuff out there. Maybe we'll change a couple of them.
Absolutely. And like I told you before, we're seeing so much more of this kind of coming out with the published, like get more done doing less. And even in Peak Performance, the book that I was talking about, they brought up Bannister when he broke the 1 minute mile, the 4 minute mile, talking about what he did the week before, which was he went on a hike for a couple days and then he came back and everybody thought he was going to be doing all this running and he didn't run. I don't think he sprinted he didn't do anything for about 7 or 8 days, and he ended up coming in and he broke the 4 minute mile barrier.
Yeah, I read that too. That's outstanding stuff. And I mean, one of my football heroes, Hal Mummy, by the way, a shout out to an incredible book called The Perfect Pass by S.C. Gwynn, an amazing writer. And The Perfect Pass is a fantastic book. Hal Mummy, who invented the air raid offense, when he was asked one time, his team was like averaging 50 points a game, 500 yards a game and all that, and say, well, what makes you guys different? Said, well, we only practice 3 days a week. We never practice for more than an hour and 45 minutes. We don't stretch and we don't do conditioning. And I'm like, that guy's my hero. That's the football team that I wanted to play on. And did it hurt their performance? No. At the time, they were 9-0. At the time, they were, like I said, 508 yards a game, 75% completion rate. You can do so much less. And the other side of the coin, the more it just kills you. It kills you in injuries. It kills you in kids not loving the sport as much as they should. It makes you slower on game night. All that stuff goes into the same thing. And I think, too, we were mentioning before we started the interview, the book Essentialism. Yep. I think that all coaches need to read the book Essentialism, which basically, if you don't want to read it, I'll tell you what it says. It says that nothing's important. And as soon as you accept that, then you can remove all the BS from your life and start focusing on the things that really might be important. And my entire coaching is all based on that we want to do the least amount possible and make sure that kids are well balanced and going home. My own kids would come home from football practice so tired sometimes they'd go to bed. And I don't want my kids doing that. I want them going home and having a personality and doing some homework and watching some TV and having fun. And a lot of times we steal youth away from kids because we work them too hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, let's finish up. You were talking about, you had listened to the Strength, Power, Speed podcast, and Pat Davidson was talking about dopamine and sunshine, and you had mentioned some really interesting facts that sprinters in the north are no match for sprinters in the southern states, that the high schools in California, Texas, Florida, Georgia dominate the national track and field rankings. Have you have you tried to change anything you're doing? Because obviously being in Illinois, being indoors a lot, what have you done to change to kind of help with that?
Yeah, I just totally believe that the two things you can do to improve your dopamine levels is sleep and sunshine. Those are the two most important things. There's other things too, and if you want to see those things, you can read my article, Sunshine. I think it's sprinters, sunshine, dopamine, or something like that. It's basically sprint, sun, dopamine. So dopamine allows you to feel good, feel invincible. Dopamine also allows you to move your limbs faster. I believe that more important than any workout would be the fact that if you could get out for an hour of sunshine every day, I mean, out in the sunshine, you can sunbathe. I believe the morning sunshine is more important than afternoon sunshine, that if you can get yourself up and get out in the sun every day, you're going to be a faster athlete. And in my article, I have pretty good data that shows that the same kids in California, Texas, Georgia, Florida, if they were in Minnesota, they would not be as fast. They just would not be as fast. And it's partly due to training, maybe, training indoors and all that stuff. But I think it's all about fluorescent light instead of sunshine. And so, if anything, I will tell all my kids that sleep is the most important thing they could be doing. That's naps, that's good sleep at night. And the other thing is sunshine, morning sunshine. The more sunshine, the better. And then a little anecdotal story. The kid I mentioned earlier, Marcellus Moore, an absolute phenom. This kid was good indoors for us. And then we had a 13-day break between our indoor season, outdoor season. And we actually, during spring break, I go to Florida because I need, it's a long season. I need to replenish a little bit. I need some dopamine in my life. And so I told Marcellus, I said, whatever you do, I don't want to hear about you doing crushing workouts with your AAU coach. He goes, oh, don't worry, coach. I'm going on a 7-day cruise. Now, to most coaches, they think, oh, my God, a 7-day cruise, he's going to come back fat and slow. Well, Marcellus came out on the first outdoor meet of his freshman year and ran 10.55 and 21.29, school records, fastest times in the state of Illinois. Just an amazing thing. And so what allowed him to have an elite performance in his first outdoor meet as a 14-year-old? Well, it sure wasn't any workouts. I really believe it was a 7-day cruise and a lot of sunshine. A lot of people think that's crazy, but I'm a real believer in sleep and sunshine and dopamine.
Absolutely. And reading Sleep Smarter, Sean Stevenson's book, he will tell you the data is there that the more sunshine that you get, and usually the morning is better. They actually have a chart to tell you where you're located, what time of day is the best sunshine for you. But it will actually help your sleep as well. So it starts to snowball on each other. So good stuff. Coach, thanks so much. I mean, we've taken enough of your time, and we could be here all day talking about so many of these things. But we really appreciate all your contributions, and also now on StrengthCoach.com, your contributions there. And thanks for taking the time out today to kind of go over some of these topics.
Yeah, I could talk every morning like this. This is fun. Thank you.
My team and I have always believed in the first two principles. We realize the elegant simplicity of how things work, and the way we honor that elegant simplicity and that elegant complexity is to create a system. Now, notice, I wrote another word up here because the young gray cook thought I could create a program, a workout, a warm-up, a stretch, or an exercise that would fix all the bad things. But there's no inoculation or vaccination in the world that will protect you from everything. Some push you in one direction and some push you in another. So I quickly dropped the theory that I could design a prepackaged, easily dispensable program that would fix the complex movement issues that you're going to confront in your life. So I quit being a program guy looking for one program that changes it. Because what I found out is, you like somebody's success? I think I'm going to do their program. Well, adopt their whole culture. Eat what they eat, sleep how they sleep, live how they live, laugh like they laugh, study like they study, train like they train. Do everything in their culture or nothing at all. Because if you just pick the few things that are shiny to you, they're probably not the things that are going to make the difference in you, and they're only part of the other person's success. There's only one other way. You either got to go full immersion and adopt the culture of the people you want to be, or you got to measure yourself against them and then find out what you're not covering and what you've completely covered. So I could easily go into a team and take the top 10 most productive contributors. I'm not talking about the superstar. I'm talking about the people who are always there, who always play, who get hurt less than most people, who get tired less than most people. They're just durable performers. What does that mean? It doesn't mean a great game. It means a great 5-year career. Find me those people on any given team, in any environment, in any occupation. Find me that percentage, the people that just do more with less, no matter what. They're more resourceful, but they've got the resources to cover it. I will measure their physical fitness, their functional movement, their health. I'll measure everything and say, listen, the reason you're not them has nothing to do with your health, your function, or your fitness. They're more resourceful with the resources than you are. Or I'll say the exact opposite. You're missing power. They've got more power than you. Oh, we're marathoners? I know, but the marathoners that are beating you actually test with more power than you. Even though marathons aren't a power sport, they're an endurance sport, these people know how to springy, get that integrity a little quicker than you. So the only test that you flunked against the marathoners that are beating you is your power test. Not because marathons are a power sport, because they have not given up some of that vital power to get their endurance. So you've got a physical barrier to skill acquisition because you haven't covered the physical profile of the people beating you. Once you have, I think you're going to have to admit it's a processing problem, it's a technical problem, it's a creativity problem, it's a tactical problem. You don't know how to win, but you've got all the physical blocks in place. That's different, and we need to make sure people know what they're doing. My friends and I created a system, and that system is just a series of a bunch of little screens. We've got a movement health screen. What's the vital sign you got to have for movement health? No pain with movement. That's one of the easiest ones. What's the vital sign for movement function? Cover the minimal acceptable movement pattern qualities in each of the patterns. Is that going to give us an indication of mobility and stability? Sure, but not directly, indirectly, because if you have great measurable mobility and great measurable stability and you still can't move, what the hell good is it? So movement patterns tell us when we investigate deeper, but we should start at movement patterns, not micromanagement of what your knee is doing. Your brain knows how to do it better than any biomechanist. We've also got screens for fitness or performance, or what we like to call the physical resources of movement or the capacities. And it all fits together. If you're healthy enough, then that means you can grow and repair. If you're functional enough, that means your body can communicate clean information to your brain so your brain can learn to move. And if you're fit enough, that means you have the capacity to stay in the batter's box long enough to learn to be a batter. Stay on the tennis court long enough to learn to play tennis. But if your physical support and your function will not let you stay on the tennis court as long as everybody else, then you restrict your ability to learn to do that skill. So you got to have the physical base or the soil to plant the seed of tennis into. And once you've got that soil, we found that a good, thorough tennis development program keeps you fit while you're learning tennis. You don't have to do supplementary stuff in a well-constructed skill development program. The other cool thing is if you're covering everything you're supposed to, your function and your health don't get worse either. So once we've got you there, we can design better training methodology just based on, are you maintaining your vital signs? Have we protected you from behaviors that could otherwise put you at risk, or just keep you from good feedback. You're not going to make good decisions here. Don't do the behavior. So when we get all the way down to create the system, we tried to build screens that helped us make the next best decision. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people look at FMS and look at what we've done with the SFMA and other things, and they simply only look at this, not understanding that we nailed these principles as good as we could with what we've got. We didn't go high tech. And one of the things that I like to make an analogy of is when you're looking through a camera lens, there's two ways that you can adjust things. When you focus, you create clarity. And when you zoom, you basically delete all other perspectives, but really zoom in on one perspective. And I said this in the movement book a long time ago. I think one of the biggest problems in healthcare and fitness, athletic development, and even injury risk management in industry is the fact that we zoom in on a problem before we get clear on what we're looking at. And we didn't write this operating system. The human movement operating system was not written by a human. Now, every other operating system and every other tech device you have was written by a human and can be hacked by a slightly smarter human. We can't hack this system because we didn't write this software, but we can learn to read it better and feed it what it needs, because the way you program the human neurological system is not through direct commands put through a keyboard that uploads on your brain. It is changing the way our brain perceives the way it's going to handle the next environmental exposure, the next attack, the next combat, the next competition, the next exercise. Are you going to be effective? And are you efficient when you're doing it? A lot of times we flip those two. We try to be efficient before we're effective. Isn't that a problem in healthcare right now? They're trying to save money making you well. They're not trying to make you well first. Make me well first and then see how cheaply you can do it and cheaply I can afford it. That would work better. These three principles are going to be an operating system for every question you could ever ask our system. And that's why even if you don't adopt our system, I'm pretty sure if you don't at least point your system at these principles, you're going to wind up where we've been. And I want to wind up where we're going.
All right, well, that's going to do it for episode 211 of the Strength Coach Podcast. Special thanks to Chris Poirier and the folks over at Perform Better. You can check them out at performbetter.com for all their products and info on their educational seminars. Don't forget, Perform Better is having its annual summer sale. Everything is on sale practically. You name it, and the prices have been slashed. The summits are also here. Chicago is this weekend, the 27th through the 30th, and then Long Beach is at the end of August, so register now for that at performbetter.com. Thanks to Coach Boyle and Coach Holler for sharing their insights and philosophies into the world of strength and conditioning, performance enhancement, and speed. Alan Cosgrove for the Results Fitness University Business and Fitness segment. Check them out at resultsfitnessuniversity.com. Functional Movement Systems. Check them out at functionalmovement.com. And of course, remember, you can try strengthcoach.com out for 3 days. Just $1. You'll have access to all the articles, videos, and programs, as well as the best forum on the net. It's the only place to have full access to Coach Boyle. He's on every day. To access that offer, go to strengthcoach.com. Click the Join Now button to get started on your trial. My name's Anthony Randy. You can reach me at strengthcoachpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again, and I'll speak to you next time.